And we are in Pakistan, Islamabad, the heart of the political pulse, the capital, intellectual capital of all the resources and all the thing happening. And with us is Shandana Gulzar Khan, Parliamentary Secretary to Commerce, the driving engine of the Pakistan economy. We are going to debate and discuss some interesting thoughts. Thank you so much for coming down here. Everybody talks about economy because all over the globe, everybody has problems. Even the superpower nations have problems. So as far as the excuses and the problems, they're almost the same. Every country, they're almost the same. I just want to focus on what is Naya Pakistan, what's the Naya vision, because I'm sure you will agree that technology and the China relationship has brought Pakistan to a very interesting thing, and the largest number of youth in a nation, and now Pakistan becoming a population-rich nation, which is another interesting topic. What are some of your challenges or some of your thoughts, and how do you see a kind of a quantum leap where you and your ministers and Dr. Razak Daud and all that, and what kind of quantum leap you anticipate? Because 4 or 5 years of political leadership is so short and the long journey. So quantum leap is really what's required in the first 12 months or something. Mm-hmm. Where do you see?
Thank you for that, Chi. You've actually hit the nail on its head. That's a lot of questions also, but maybe we can start with where things started going well for Pakistan, and when and why they started, or when they stopped working for us. Between the years 2001 and 2002, and then 2007 and 2008, our trade doubled. So it went from $6 billion to $19 billion. Part of it was a big shift in how trade was handled. A lot of our economic diplomacy at the time was carried out by the Foreign Office. But it was decided at that time that the Ministry of Commerce in particular would be in charge of economic and commerce affairs, similar to what happened in the United States. The State Department was no longer involved in trade, and USTR, United States Trade Representative, was born, because they felt that the Foreign Office has a very different task in the political economy than Ministry of Commerce. And of course, as we know, economic negotiations are very different from political negotiations, number one. Thereafter, we saw the biggest boom in our exports in the year 2013-14, when the European Union decided to include Pakistan in its GSP Plus arrangements. We were able to capitalize in 1 year alone. We went to $25 billion. That number then started failing at the end of the last 2 years because some of the measures taken by the previous government, but not by the Commerce Ministry, interestingly. It was the fiscal policies, it was the revenue policies that were not in tandem with the trade policy, and hence you saw the falling exports. The good news is that Commerce Ministry on its own managed not only to stabilize the situation, but we reversed the gains by up to $1 billion. We're doing more of the same. Now, how will we do that? This government, as you say, 5 years is a very short term in politics. But I think one thing each one of us is very conscious of is that though we may be politicians, newly born, but we're the government. We're not politicians. We're not here to settle scores. We're not here to get into a war of words. We're here to do things. So what are we trying to do? First of all, the Prime Minister's first initiative was to combine the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Textile, Investment under one roof. This is exactly how it's done in the rest of the world. It's done in Malaysia, it's done in Japan, all the progressive economies. So administratively, they're all under our Minister, Dr. Razak Daud Sahib, who you know, he's unparalleled in Pakistan and perhaps the rest of Asia as well in terms of expertise, his vision. The second step we're taking now is going to try to ensure that we have a 5-year trade policy instead of a 1 or a 3-year. But we don't just have a trade policy. In 12 last years, we've not had an industrial policy. We need an IT policy, industry policy, economic policy, textile policy, tariff policy, intellectual property rights policy, all of them working towards the same goal, but all of them coming from a different direction. That doesn't mean that the entire government will be merged into one, but that means that everybody has to work towards the same goal, which is enhancing your productivity, stimulating domestic production, and increasing your exports. So that is the first main goal of this government as regards commerce and economy.
Amazing. So this will synergize, it will become it will create that cyclone of effect that everybody comes together under one umbrella, and then they also appreciate and share each other's, like intellectual property, management of intellectual property is so critical and so badly neglected in some of these countries, and it is such a powerhouse play if you want to open international markets, and of course it ties up right away to the export. You must have heard our challenge that we broadcast last time, that mathematically we can prove that Pakistan can export $1 billion a day. It's very simple, easy. When you look at the 100 nations, and when you look at the diaspora, when you look at the people, smart people of Pakistan, Pakistan is a very smart nation compared to a lot of other countries and so on. I have no difficulty accepting and talking about that. And the Pakistani from outside have exceptional knowledge and roles and things that they do and they play, and because they got better opportunities, so it enhanced them, which also proves that people here have that same talent, but they just lack those opportunities to do that. And of course, the other thing, Pakistan has unbelievable natural resources and products and things and so on, and it's a vertical country from the oceans to the foothills of Himalayas. So it has all that. But why is it not being done? And what can this current leadership can do to fuel it? Because export promotion bureaus and TDAPs and all those skeletons of the past, what's next on that? How will that work? And do you really believe that it can be done? Because this is where it should be.
So you've heard this expression, when you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up, right?
Yes.
I'm a trade analyst, I'm a trade lawyer for the last 20 years. So what I say comes with a pinch of grounding and reality. Despite my political affiliation with PTI, I can honestly tell you that there were many elements in the previous government, in particular in the Ministry of Commerce, that tried very hard to fight the grain. They did not want the current economic conditions to exist, but they were the lone voices. They were the voices of sanity. The previous government, unfortunately, in my opinion, was too fixated on re-winning the election. They wanted 10 years. What they didn't understand is get your first 5 years right, you'll do the next 5 years as well. They took rash decisions, in particular the finance part. They took decisions which were populist and worked really well. But unfortunately, that's not what the election shows, because populism works for a little while. Then reality sets in. So what can we do and what will we do? We launched something called Emerging Pakistan, an initiative of the Ministry of Commerce last year at the Expo Karachi. It has done wonders for us. We are talking to the people. We're taking Pakistan to the people. We want to tell them that we're not putting a shine on what doesn't work. We're being honest. We're simply telling you this is what works, this is what we have, this is who we are. Come in and talk to us. Come and invest with us. Come and work with us, and you'll see the difference. Don't believe the hype. I'll give an example of the Financial Times. Our neighbor, our very large trading neighbor, often does things which are exceptionally incorrect when it comes to human rights, when it comes to political rights, when it comes to women's rights. You'll never see that in the Financial Times. That's not to say the Financial Times is biased, but they've posited themselves so well in the world, their narrative has been posited so well that people tend to ignore the bad stuff. We, on the other hand, try so hard. If you look at the European Union parliamentary debates from this year, and Pakistan's record on human rights, on labor rights, on child rights, it's much better than pretty much all of the countries out there, because we're under a microscope. We can only avail the GSP Plus if we continue to protect the rights of our own citizens, not of European citizens, of our own citizens. That's an Islamic imperative. So it's not as if we've got this agenda, external agenda. It's our business to take care of our people, and that's what we intend to do. Now, practically, you talked about IPRs, the Intellectual Property Rights Organization of Pakistan. We had a presentation a couple of days ago, and while it's not public knowledge, so I can't share everything, but they've got some very exciting things on their plate. By the end of this year, there's 4 initiatives they're launching. Middle of 2019, a couple of other initiatives, and end of 2019. So in 6 months, in staggered 18 months, we're going to come center stage, because before our only agenda or aim in intellectual property rights was to be compliant, so that the big exporting countries of intellectual property rights, of copyrights, of trademarks, of patents, they're happy with how we protect their rights. Now, the next agenda item is to ensure that we are one of those countries that produces and exports intellectual property rights. And what are those? We've got a rich history. Herbal medication, traditional medication, Unani medication, your songs, your music, your dramas, your TV serials, you've got all of that. So it's not as if we have to start from scratch. Your textile, your design is just not being showcased to the world because we were lagging behind in producing our own IPRs. We were too busy looking at the West. Sure. We don't have to emulate anyone. Let's take the good stuff they do and let's do some of our own stuff and do it originally. Sure. So intellectual property rights, we're coming out in a big way, inshallah, in the next couple of months, and it'll be on all for us, so it's not something we have to hide. Then you talked about this beauty that we have, the tourism, and again, emerging Pakistan, that's where it comes in. If you look at the Emerging Pakistan website, it talks very clearly about what is working well. It talks about the opportunities for investment. We're linking up with the Board of Investment now. We're trying to fix the ease of doing business. We've launched something called Splinter. And then with that Splinter, this was on 5th of October 2018. We're trying to couple up with a couple of business indicators that investors and external business people are not too happy with, and we fix them. Because we can't fix everything in short term. Not in 6 months, not in 1 year, maybe in 5 years. But for the moment, for the next 12 months, as you mentioned, we're looking at the key factors. What is it that hampers people from coming to Pakistan? For instance, there's a travel advisory, insurance companies, in particular for American business people, they don't make it too easy for them to travel to Pakistan. So we're looking into that. What can we do to fix this? Is it fixable? And if it's not fixable, then what's the other option? We're not going to bang our heads crying about the same problem. And I think that's where Naya Pakistan or PTI comes in. I think there's this acceptance that good countries, emerging economies, developing economies are honest economies. They talk about their problems. They don't hide their problems. And they don't hide behind rhetoric. They're brave enough to say, look, there are problems, but they're fixable. And so I guess we've got this amazing Business Advisory Council that was notified again on the 5th of October of this year. We want to talk to business. We want to sit down with business, tell us your problems. But what we also want from business is to tell us how to fix the entire problem, not just your industry's problem, because that's what's been happening for the last 70 years. SRO culture. My cousin works for this industry, my uncle works for that industry, my uncle works in this manufacturer. All right, let's fix their problems and issue these SROs which destroy your economy. You have a plethora of SROs coming in. You can't, it's a spaghetti bowl. You start unraveling, you start untying, and then you realize it's all collapsed. So there are going to be no more favorite economies, or favorite sectors of the economy, sorry. Every Pakistani deserves protection. Sure. But those of you who have been protected for the last 10, 12, 15, 30 years, it's time for you to do hand-holding and start teaching the others how to move forward. Start talking to the SMEs, start talking to the women sitting at home. We're rolling out an e-commerce initiative, something we started in the previous government's time, but we were not able to complete because of the political turmoil. So we want every Pakistani businessman sitting at home to sell online. Why not? Sure. Why can't we have the next Alibaba in Pakistan? Sure. So I guess what I'm telling you in a nutshell, nothing is impossible. And if we have governmental buy-in, if we have this, and this is what we're promising to the nation, we're going to give you solidity, we're going to give you parallelism, we're going to give you solid policies, we're going to give you things that work, and you will be allowed, encouraged, and bullied into talking to us. Come and talk to us, tell us what the problem is. Sure. So I think for 1 year, that's a tall order. I don't know if any other government ever had a 100-day agenda, a 100-day manifesto, and that is actively tracking itself. Sure. We're actually putting ourselves in the hot seat. We've got a tracker online, and you'll be able to see that what milestones we didn't fulfill, but more importantly, why we couldn't.
Sure. No, I think Shandana, you have laid out this landscape with 100 spikes, each one calling for attention, and each one badly neglected for whatever reason. But I think the Prime Minister Imran Khan's grassroots mentality, that fairness and to touch the common person, is very noticeable. You know that we have challenged this $1 billion a day global export based on the following, that if we could transform 5,000, 10,000 small, medium enterprises to improve their performance skills, it is a very mathematical combination. Now, in order to do that, we tabled the white paper, which we call a national solution. TCS is a 10,000 plus organization, Pakistan. Oktara is a division of TCS, and Expathon is an exclusive partnership with Expathon. And so we brought this training and mass leadership deployment program to impact the life of 5,000, 10,000 mid-sized economy players simultaneously right across the nation. And in order to demonstrate and in order to apply all that, the Oktara Debase is just a discussion platform, and then we have multiple other programs that we will deploy and penetrate and so on. And we just announced a proposal to all the chambers across Pakistan yesterday, and we sent them an official document that how we will train 1,000 people in understanding global age, understanding innovation, understanding all the leadership issue, all the performance and innovative issues, things that are not taught in university. University can no longer teach business education. And also, there is no apprenticeship system, so all the hierarchy that has climbed up is really void of that, and so nepotism or whatever, that is clearly visible, these gaps. And we are tabling this on a very grand scale, that how we can impact 5 to 10, 20,000 people through this training program, and within 1 or 2 years, uplift the whole thing, because technology allows that. You've got the global expertise and experience. Pakistan is ready. There's a new leadership. There's this, that, and there's even a talk going on that perhaps you can use the Governor House to lay out this plan, do a possible debate on it, bring all the necessary leadership, and explain the blueprint and do it. And as far as we are not seeking funding, and we are offering this program, you're sitting down, so I can tell you, at 100 rupees per hour. Excellent. At 100 rupees per hour, and we are giving them 100% satisfaction guarantee, because we are warriors. We are basically people who believe in the new revolution, the new age, and it is based on a philosophy of micropower nation. Micropower nations are the new era where superpower nations have lost their edge because their economic models were based on destroying each other's economy. Micropower nations are the population-rich nation where once population was considered a curse, and now today, these population-rich with a mobile phone is an enterprise. And we discussed and tabled this 10 years ago, the knowledge-rich nations' problem, limitations, and population-rich nation. Pakistan is a prime example of that, and what India and China producing 1 billion new entrepreneurs dwarfs the Western progress that has taken last 3-4 decades. So what are we doing here? What we are doing is discussing and creating this dialogue with the people outside, Chamber of Commerces and the mid-sized economy. Plus we are bouncing it with all the embassies and the trade groups and so on. And we are also trying to bounce with the International Chamber of Commerce and so on. What we are doing, we are really demonstrating, we did all this in 60 days, by the way. In 60 days, we've created a total shift in awareness right across all the trade association and all the chambers. We are basically utilizing what we call the common sense revolution. Technology, discussion, debate, arguments, solutions, connecting the dots, creative, innovative, alliances, cooperation, positive thinking, exportability, all resulting in job creation. Because until and unless we solve that problem, it will really not raise the thing. So with these kinds of challenges, what do you think we should do which could be faster or better under these near Pakistan thinking? And do you think doing this in the governor's house or some of the venue that the Prime Minister talked about, do you think that would be a very attractive start for that?
Certainly, if it's something which is being endorsed by the Prime Minister, by the government, it automatically sends a signal to the world that Pakistan is open to business, number one. Number two, what you just said, I think this needs to be coordinated with the Ministry of Commerce. We'd be happy to hear from you and help in any way we can. And we have the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan. So we can put you in touch with the right people and see if there are niches already created where this could fit. And if this is something completely new, then we'll find and create a niche for you. Thirdly, I'll just give you an example. We've recently had discussions, this has not been rolled out yet, but there's going to be cooperation between the Intellectual Property Rights Organization of Pakistan, headed by a very dynamic individual, cooperation between universities in Pakistan, cooperation between commercialization, commercial enterprises, and there's going to be cooperation between the Commerce Ministry. So what is the plan now? The plan is you encourage university students to do research specifically on commercially viable products that the world needs, that Pakistan needs, rather than doing random research, targeted economic research. And this happened in my university, where the university was huge and they were producing tons of PhDs, but they were not getting jobs and they were not contributing to the economy. So you want students to create, whether it's books, whether it's CDs, whether it's software programs, that are commercially viable, because our country is struggling. So because we're struggling economically, you don't have the luxury of having people who only talk about philosophy or art or music. There's a real-time economic crunch. There's a real-time financial issue. There are poverty issues. So what we're going to do is encourage them to streamline their thinking. The minute you get into school, you have to think about innovation and creation and commercialization. That is what the new mindset has to be. In Germany, as you know, that students are headed into two different streams. There's a professional stream, there's a technical stream, and there's no shame in that. In Pakistan, if everybody is not a doctor or an engineer or an accountant, you failed. No, we'll follow the German example. We'll follow whatever example helps us bring our economy to where it should have been. Look at Korea, look at Malaysia. Everybody got independence more or less the same time as us, some after us, and where are we today? Vietnam doubled its exports in 7 years' time. How did it do that? Simply because they followed it beforehand, and this is where PTI comes in. They had about 6 years of painful reforms, and in the 7th year, your exports doubled. They went from 35 billion to 70 billion. Of course. We can do that. But is the country ready for painful reforms? That is the question. And I don't mean the poorest strata of society. Those people who have gotten used to being comfortable, are they willing to play it straight and easy?
I think the economic engine and your ministry is automatically aligned to the progressive psyche of the entrepreneurs, because you are only creating greater opportunities. So I think if you were to table a good quality blueprint, a lot of people would want to share it because they see the prosperity. And this is how all the entrepreneurial boom, look what China did. They created passages to entrepreneurialism, and that brought that boom. They could have been an agriculture society another 100 years. So they did that. I think if Pakistan were to go out and table bold discussions, bold programs, and bring intellectual property, bring innovation and innovative, bring the people, bring the sciences, the technology, and declare it. They say, we are going to take a lead, become an example. Maybe we are one of the last ones, but then we can also become one of the top ones. So the point is, you have a great advantage because you're in commerce. Commerce is not creating pain, really. Commerce, the pain is on the corruption and the bad business side. But if commerce were to lay out trends, you would be amazed at how much of the youth and the new innovative people and now the entrepreneurs not only will respect, but run after you because you're opening those doors. For example, setting up businesses, setting up banking, setting up this, bringing the diaspora, doing this, setting the overseas account and all this stuff. And this people will love you. People will love you for that because this is where economic growth creates that prosperity spin.
The thing is, jobs are almost never created by the government, always by the private sector. What the government does is produces a conducive environment to conduct the business. A couple of times, at least the 18 to 20 years that I've been in this area, I have seen the government trying, not hard enough clearly, to bring in reform. But when reform comes in, then the next election looms in front of you, or some political lobby looms in front of you, and nobody's had the spine to stand up to that kind of pressure. I have no doubt that once we start flexing our muscle as well, there will be resistance. And I've said this before, I say it again, change is very painful, change is unwelcome. I heard a TV presenter a couple of days complain that you always talk about gharib aadmi, aam aadmi, where the poor man. What about the upper middle income and lower middle income? You're shrinking us. The upper echelons of society, financially speaking, will always have some avenue or the other. If they can't stay in this country, if they feel it's no longer good for business, they'll go elsewhere. They don't have to stay. We are here. What about us? And that struck a chord because that's exactly what happened in Rome. In Rome, the rich became richer, the poor became poorer, and the middle class started disappearing. Your middle class disappears,
sure.
Everything disappears.
And that's what's happening in America, of course. But here is something, two facts. The middle class, or let's call it the upper class of Pakistan, or let's call it the successful business community class, is having one of the most difficult time in the recent years because we would argue that they have reached their maximum potential. They would argue that it's China. They would argue that it's other foreign competition. We would argue that their lack of product development, value added, enhancement, collaboration and all that is seriously visible because they are into commodity business and they became successful because they got special privileges during the last 30, 40 years and they did that. Next generation may not have that opportunity. So we could argue that that sector, which is the driving engine of the economy, is already at the peak. So they've got two options. Either to shrink and let it just go the way it happens, stay stagnant. Stagnation is very bad. Or they have to uplift. In order to uplift, they cannot succeed with hard work. And they cannot succeed doing the same old thing that they did that brought them there. They have to enlarge their mental and emotional stamina and capacity. They have to relearn all the new global age understanding. They have to retrain because university is not going to provide those solutions to them. They have to reorient themselves that this is how a global age mid-sized enterprise could from 50 million to become 500 million and play the Alibaba that you were talking about. Alibaba is a simple 101 example of taking a small little business and multiplying it million times and then billion times and become big. It's all mathematical progression. When Kentucky Fried Chicken sells in 10,000 locations, it's one poor chicken and two drumsticks, but times 5,000, 10,000 locations. But requires ultra sophisticated management, execution, thinking, planning, and so on. Profitability management and all kinds of things. It's not hard work. I come from a culture, 50 years in experience. Big business is all about mental capacity because if your mind grows, then the business grows. Business cannot grow without that. And because it's all sophisticated thinking, strategy and execution that makes it big. Pakistan is at that opportunity. If we had opportunities to debate in vertical markets, like for example, construction industry. Construction industry is the next pillar to create the thing. And we are doing a debate focus just on construction with all the big builders and so on, because real estate access through mortgage system, bank and financing, the commercialization angle, and creating equity and creating ownership, that could spark a brand new revolution. Look what other countries have done. But there's so much to talk, and I want to thank you so much. And so much to do. I want to thank you in your busy time to find this. I hope that we continue our dialogue. I hope that we can do something with your department, and we'll exchange some ideas.
To reach out to us actively, and we'll see how we can help.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. And we will continue our discussion. Thank you.